Hello, Edu-Magicians. Welcome to the Edu-Magic Podcast with your host, Dr. Sam Fessich. Dr. Sam is a professor of education, author of Edu-Magic, and a pumpkin spice latte fan. This podcast is designed for pre-service teachers. Remember, friends, teaching doesn't begin at graduation, but during that first class at 8 a.m. Let's get this party started.
I'm Matthew Woods, host of Leading Out of the Woods, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you are listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Hello, Edu-Magicians, and welcome back to another episode of the Edu-Magic Podcast. My name is Dr. Sam Fessich, and today I'm sharing a little bit about something that I'm learning more about. It's called Restorative Practices. This episode was inspired by the book that I'm currently writing with Matt Rhodes, Kevin Leichtman, and Casey Jabowski. This book is called 50 Tips for New Teachers, and it's coming out September 2022. And this is one of the tips that's mentioned in the book, Restorative Practices 101. And whenever I was researching, I was like, you know what? I think my podcast listeners are going to want to hear about this too. So tune in, because this is where I'm learning a little bit more about restorative practices. I hope to have somebody on the show as a guest that can share more deeply about this topic for you guys. So here's what I have found out about restorative practices. We're going to talk about what it is, why it's important, the 3 different tiers, restorative practices in the classroom, and some examples of what it looks like, and where you can go to find more information about restorative practices. So let's jump in. According to We Are Teachers, restorative justice is a theory of justice that focuses on mediation and agreement rather than punishment. Offenders must accept responsibility for harm and make restitution to victims. Restorative practice is rooted in Indigenous practices. So restorative practices build school community and respectively address challenges caused by challenging behavior. Instead of punishing students, these practices promote restoring relationships among students and students taking ownership of their behaviors. According to the We Are Teachers article, there are 3 tiers of restorative justice. The first tier focuses on prevention through building communities. In Tier 1, educators lead conversation circles where students can share their feelings, discuss topics, or use a social-emotional check-in with students. In this tier, students feel valued and supported. They work to build and trust among themselves and their teachers. And in this tier, the class develops a classroom respect agreement. And this agreement holds all the students accountable. If I remember correctly, back in 2018, I went to a ESET 2 event in Pittsburgh. ESET 2 stands for Elevating and Educating and Celebrating Teaching and Teachers. And during this event, we talked about restorative justice, specifically through using the conversation circles. It was really cool to see. There's second tier in restorative practices occurs if a student breaks a rule or causes harm to a peer. In this tier, restorative justice provides the student with the opportunity to make amends. So when this occurs, a teacher mediates a conversation with those involved in the incident. In this tier, the teacher must use non-judgmental questions to get to the bottom of the situation, like, tell me what happened. How did it make you feel? Those types of things. And then the last tier is called reintegration. Reintegration into the school community is all about Tier 3. This reintegration can be done, because maybe a student was in or out of school suspension, a school expulsion, or other type of removal from the classroom. In this tier, the school team that's working with that student must recognize that, the student's going to struggle coming back to that classroom community. So being able to continue with their academics and support them as they reintegrate into the classroom community. So you might be thinking, all right, this is great information. I want to learn more. Head on over to the show notes. I have a whole list of more resources. But restorative practices can work to improve the classroom and school climate in many different ways. There's lots of research that shows that using things like restorative practices instead of punishment reduces in and out of school suspensions, along with reducing office referrals. It creates a classroom community through those conversation circles. Students feel heard and valued in their spaces. It also strengthens social and emotional skills. It strengthens relationships between peers, between the teacher and the student to the teacher. It promotes trust with teachers and peers. It improves inclusive practices within the school, within the classroom. It helps students work through conflict resolution. And it also helps students really advocate for themselves and advocate for others. So if we go back up to that first tier, they, as a class, they work to create a classroom respect agreement. And the students hold each other accountable to that. And that's where we can work to advocate for themselves and for others. Restorative practices range from conversations in the classroom to more structured conversations, maybe one-on-one with an adult. Restorative practices, is a continuum of intervention. We talked about the 3 tiers here, and these strategies can be used daily or weekly within the classroom or within the school building. It really is a fantastic resource and practice that I'm going to be looking more into. Over in the show notes, I have more information if you want to dive deeper into restorative practice. And if you know anybody who is a restorative practice or restorative justice expert, please DM me over on Instagram. I would love to have them on the show sharing more about restorative practice so we can dig a little bit deeper into this topic. Again, I'm just learning more about this, and I'm excited to continue my learning journey this summer on restorative practices. DM me over on Instagram, share what you're learning more about. I would love to hear more about ways that you are learning and growing this summer. Until then, friends, have a fantastic day, and remember, you have the Edu Magic within you. Bye for now.
And there you have it, Edu Magicians. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with your friends. For more Edu Magic, check out sfessage.com and follow Dr. Sam on Twitter and Instagram @sfessage. Until next time, you have the Edu Magic within you.